And welcome everybody back to the show to be named later. We're not still sure if that's the name of the show or if we're just lazy. Andy, we got a lot to talk about today, man. How is everything going in your neck of the woods? We've only got what, like 13 days left till shopping. Christmas shopping is
Uh,
over. 11.
I don't think, yeah, I don't think we're lazy. The people who watch this show have not given us any options.
That's true. Although
So
I
it's
will be
on them.
fair, you did ask me to put a poll up to which I have yet to pull up, but I can't think of any other options but the one we have. It should be does this
But they
game
could,
suck or no?
this is no, this is the Thousand Monkeys in a typewriter room. Eventually they would write Shakespeare. You would think some of the monkeys that watch this show could at least come up with a short, catchy name.
You would think so. And I feel like Craig Harmon's over here going, I'm your only loyal damn listener who followed you from both shows. Listen to me. Merry Christmas, Craig. In fact, we need to get some of your takes on some of these topics, but we do have a bunch that we want to run down.
And,
And,
and he can win.
and
Craig can win.
honestly, we have a prize. That's the other thing, too. It's not like we're phoning this shit in. You know, we've put thought into this, unlike much of what else we've done in our collaborating career. Um, oh my God. First of all, we have to respond to this tweet from good friend of ours, the Hitter Sports. Um, okay. Oh my lord, because this is gonna be a conversation we're gonna deal with him in New York. He tweeted, "Skeleton Crew is fun, but it is fan service slop." Blah 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 blah. Which I've not seen the show yet. Whatever. And then he subtweets himself and says, "But it's the Goonies in space. I've got news for you. The Goonies fucking sucks." What is your response to that? Do we kick him in the shin? That
I will
seems my
say, I
response.
well, the Goonies sucks is, clearly him having a hot take moment, and that's fine. He's entitled to his opinion. God love him.
And we do,
But
but
there's a
seriously,
whole host of things. The Goonies is not one of my favorite movies, but it's certainly a seminal movie for people of a certain age. And pretending that it's not, and pretending that it's somehow overblown or tried or whatever you want to call it, it's not. There are a million worse movies that were produced in that time frame,
yeah.
and we could probably do an entire show on movies worse than the Goonies. Uh, but you do have to respect the idea that if a lot of people love a movie, there's probably something worth loving in that movie for those people. Let people enjoy things.
You exactly what I said when a student of mine asked me if I forgot what movie it was, and it was a classic, and I said I'm not a fan, but I understand that I'm the minority. Like, just understand it didn't work for you, but it doesn't make it bad. Oh,
I just wish you could understand that about the Beatles, Jim.
actually, we're getting to that later on in the show. But and what's super funny is I just hopped over to Twitter just to make sure Kyle Tucker hasn't been traded in the last 12 hours since I last looked at Twitter because I don't really look at Twitter anymore. It looks like no. Okay. Andy, I have become very bullish on the concept of trading Kyle Tucker. I feel all right. Listen, guys, we actually did record a really introspective, in depth, serious approach to what will happen if Kyle Tucker gets traded. And I'm telling you, about 15 minutes after the episode uploaded, he got traded. Andy, trading with the Cubs. I don't really know the details, but one of my baseball experts and sophomore film student was reading off, and he seems to think, Michael, you think it's a good trade for the Astros? Yes or no? Yeah, he feels like it's a good trade for us. What say you?
I think if you're not married to the idea of Kyle Tucker being an Astro, and I know some of our fans are, and they're going to be, and this isn't even a
The term
situation
is
where
panties in a twist.
But this isn't even a situation where it's a marginal player that happened to be on a World Series team, and so we give them extra credit for existing. This is Kyle Tucker is a legit all-star outfielder, and his absence is going to create a hole. The hope with this trade is that we filled two or three holes, probably one longer term, but two shorter term, uh, that makes this palatable. I think that I'm reading all kinds of things on Blue Sky. I haven't gotten to the point where I want to get on Twitter and get
Don't
those
do
takes
it.
yet,
Just don't
but
do it. It's
I feel
burning.
like I don't. But anyway, the deal is Kyle Tucker is now a Chicago Cub. In exchange, the Astros are receiving right-handed pitcher, mostly a reliever, Hayden Wesneski, who is from Houston, the Cypress area.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You telling me we got a Pollock from Houston? I'm in.
Uh-huh.
It's all we need, straight up. That's all we need.
Isaac Paredes, who is a corner infielder, has played for the Tigers, played for the Rays, got traded to the Cubs last year. He is only entering his age 26 years, so still relatively a young major leaguer.
Okay, so you
As
said corner infielder. That means not just third, but also
well, we'll get to that. And then Cam Smith, who is the seventh ranked prospect in the Cubs organization, but he is a top 100 prospect from what I'm reading.
which becomes the
And
Astros' only top 100
I think
in
they've
their
got
system
one
now.
more. I think we're up to two now. So,
Woohoo!
um, but I think this does a couple of things. A, you've got an answer for at least one of your corner infielders if you had to break camp right now and start a season. Isaac Paredes is either going to be your first baseman or your third baseman. I know he has primarily played at third base. The Astros were interested in acquiring him last offseason, and during the season to potentially play first base. He is an upgrade at first base for the Astros over whatever we were going to roll out this year. And he's a downgrade from Alex Bregman, potentially. However, I think this move frees up just enough payroll for this year on a couple of ways that makes in my mind, makes the signing of Bregman more likely, not less likely. And I'm hearing takes from other fan bases, like the
Sure.
Yankees fans, convinced this means that Bregman is signing with them somehow. I think we're moving Paredes to first. It remains to be seen. I could be completely off base. The other interesting thing
As soon as we're
is
done,
this,
as soon as we're done recording, they'll announce where he's playing. So then we'll
of
just have
course.
to record. I did
Um,
see before you continue though. I did see again. My student showed me the overlay of, and I'm looking at it right now of basically from last year the amount of home runs he would have in Minute Maid Park. It's what in the 30s.
yep. Yeah, it's interesting to me that we have talked about actually on many iterations of our show that if trying to find the guy that pulls the ball to the Crawford boxes is kind of a lost cause. It's a lot easier said than done. Pitchers can pitch you away from that part of the park, blah 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 blah. Pitchers have been trying to pitch him away from the park his entire career, his 4 or 5 year career in the majors, and he hits to that part of the park. The fact that Houston's part of the park is a lot closer to the Detroit's part of the park,
Right.
or Tampa's part of the park, or Chicago's part of the park in left field. He's a pure pull hitter, and I think he's going to be a giant offensive upgrade at first base for us. And I really do believe he's playing at first base because I really do believe this move makes the signing of Alex Bregman a lot more intimate or imminent.
Okay. Tell me about
The
the
other thing I
prospect,
think,
and I two other questions.
well, the other thing I think is interesting before we get to Cam Smith, because I don't know a whole lot about him other than he's better than anything we have in our minor leagues right now, is that Hayden Wesneski profiles to be a seventh inning guy. And that could mean
Bye
that
bye
you
Presley.
a little bit more freedom to trade Ryan Presley because you've got a couple holes with this deal too. You have the answer for the question at third base. If you're playing Paredes there, you've got to have a first baseman, so that's got to work out. But let's assume we have Paredes at first, Bregman at third. You now have a right field need because the Astros don't really have one in their organization unless they're going to be playing the other top 100 prospect that we have, who is probably not ready yet. So I think it gives you a little bit more flexibility to maybe make potentially another deal or two. I think this does mean that Fromber's off the table, so Fromber's probably safe. But
Yeah. Mhm.
it's interesting times.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the trade from the Astros perspective. To me, it feels like this is definitely a step in the right direction, and I think it also shows the willingness of Dana Brown to be pretty aggressive because it's a pretty. If this thing blows up, it's going to blow up big because Tucker is a beloved member of the Astros right now, and we know fans get crazy. And so if you see Paredes struggle at all, this is going to be one of those rallying cries that the fans going to have. I think it was a pretty ballsy move and shows you that he's really going to be aggressive about fixing things.
Well, I think it's, an acknowledgement of where the Astros are in their window or life cycle or whatever you want to call it. Lunau would not have made this deal. I'm pretty sure James Click would not have made this deal. And you can argue about who's driving those decisions, but I think this shows that Dana Brown has the latitude to do what he thinks is best for the future of the team. And we are in a situation, Houston is in a situation where you're likely not re-signing Kyle Tucker. And so he becomes another person in this list of people we've seen leave the franchise over the last 7 years. But this time we're getting something back besides a conditional first round draft
Yeah.
pick. And we're getting at least two players that can immediately help this year. That's exciting. And that is certainly a new direction. And I will also be happy to point out, if I do get back on Twitter, all of the Astros fans who were bitching that the Astros made no moves last year and just wanted them to do something. Dana Brown did something
You did
today.
something.
You can like it, you can not, but he's
Yeah.
making moves. And I think that's encouraging.
I
Obviously,
was
the
just
move.
telling again, I was telling some of my students right now because I'm literally in the middle of class as I'm doing this, but we were talking about how with Boris's camp talking about we're trying to get Bregman back to Houston with Bregman saying he wants to resign. It's the first time you've ever seen Scott Boris play that hand that way of saying, yeah, we want him to, we hope it works out that he gets to go back to Houston. And I think that's definitely a different approach than what you've seen from him.
Yeah, but again, Boris is Altuve's agent too, and Altuve ended up back in Houston because that's where Altuve wanted to be. Maybe I'm naive, maybe it's wishful thinking, but I really do believe Bregman wants to end up back in Houston. And so if you're hearing that from Scott Boris, that means that's the direction he's getting from his client. And ultimately, Boris is a great agent because he does what his clients want him to do.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked earlier in the show or later in the show, because I don't know where I'm going to put this, that the short sightedness and people not understanding that the agent doesn't make these decisions in a vacuum. He is there to execute his client's goals and he can inform his clients on what he thinks the best strategy is. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to Kyle Tucker where he plays next year, after next year.
Right. Barring the other than the contract, there's nothing precluding Tucker from signing anywhere. I think it's a gamble the Cubs wanted to take because they think they're at a certain level of progress where they need to start showing, a playoff push, and good for them. I think it'll allow Tucker to highlight his skills in a bigger media market, which, while it should matter, absolutely does.
Sure.
Uh, and he's out of the American League, so we don't have to deal with him other than the 3-game series at some point this year.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
if we
fine.
deal with them in the playoffs, well, that's the World Series. Bring it on.
Right.
All right. Well, Andy, we're going to get back to our regularly scheduled, already recorded episode. Thanks for jumping back on.
And just as a small note, Cam Smith was the number 14 ranked player in the 2024 draft out of Florida State. So he is highly thought of, and more to come on him as we figure out what the Astros are going to do with him. I would say, Astros fans, he's probably at least a year, if not two, away. He just played a couple of games at Double A after spending most of his time in dominating
But still
single A
in.
ball,
Yeah.
but it was single A ball. So hold your water on Cam Smith.
Yeah, and take a look at his double A numbers too, because he's going to be playing in a league that's not going to be as it's not going to be as offensively friendly. So you should get a pretty good idea of what he's going to be able to do when he gets up here.
Well, I can't wait for the takes that he's not hitting as well as Pedro Leon in Sugarland, so his bust. That'll be
Exactly.
fun.
Now, look, we do have some fun stuff that we're going to talk about. Like, we're definitely taking this episode from a rapid fire. And one of the features that we're going to be including throughout the show is getting video content from fans or from colleagues of ours or from people who interest. And we actually had one of the most successful independent actresses that I know, Jess Paul. She also does a lot of fun internet stuff. We'll put her links down there. But I knew she was a massive Christmas person and we are going to talk some Christmas stuff. So I wanted to come in with discussing, first of all, our least favorite and favorite Christmas songs. And let's go to Jess Paul to hear her choices.
It's your girl, Jess Paul, indie darling. Just Google me. Thank you so much for having me on to bring you my Christmas favesies and Christmas despises, as I have coined them. So, when it comes to my favorite Christmas song, you're going to ask the emo chick to cycle through decades of modern Christmas classics, and she's going to pick something like Don't You Miss Santa Claus by The Killers. If you don't know what this song is, please YouTube Google it. It is such a fun time. It is it's those cute little Mormon boys running around the desert being bound and gagged by a poorly disguised Santa Claus. It's fun for everybody except for the Killers. You'll Shoot Your Eye Out by Fall Out Boy is a close second.
Andy, I've got some that I disagree and agree with her on. First of all, have you heard the Killer song that is that too young for us?
No, because my song that I had picked would have been The Killers' Christmas in LA. And it
Oh, wow.
is
Am I too old?
The Killers are not a new band. I
I
really think they've
know.
been around about 20 years.
I think you're right. Oh my God, they're right. And 30
Mr.
years
Mr.
ago was
Brightside.
1995. Ugh.
Right. Mr. Brightside.
Yeah,
That's the
you're
Killers.
right. That's a great song, actually.
Um, no, I don't disagree with that. And the thing with Christmas songs, it's kind of to me like Christmas movies. You can have the debate about Die Hard all you want about whether or not it's a Christmas movie, but if it makes you feel Christmassy, even if part of that feeling is maudlin or a little bit wistful or a little bit sad, that's okay. It can still be a Christmas song for you, or it can still be a Christmas movie for you. Christmas in LA is, I think if you listen to it, it would be the kind of song that you would really get into because A, you hate Los Angeles,
Oh,
and
so
B,
much.
it's that, but it's also that kind of time in your life. It's reflective of the time in your life when you're kind of alone during the holidays and you don't really know what's about to happen and it just all feels kind of shitty, but then the memories kind of carry you through.
Okay.
So it's
It
I
sounds
like
up my
things that are
alley.
emotional. I like things that are emotionally evocative. And it's Christmas in LA is a great song. The Killers are a great band. I
What
don't
is
think we're too old.
you know? Because you're right. Mr. Brightside's like a second level song. Okay. If I could pick your number two, is it the Pogues, the New York one?
Yes.
Because I know you
And
love
they're
that
right
one
up
too.
there. And again, it depends what kind of mood I'm in because
Yeah.
it's like right there. I
Yeah.
like and I don't think either of those would be considered obscure Christmas songs, but I tend to like the things that are a little bit less over. We have a no Mariah Carey rule in our house because my wife just absolutely hates Mariah Carey, that Christmas song.
Can we
And
have her
so
on the
if you
show as a
are
therapy session?
if you are ever advertising and using that song, know that that commercial will not be played in our home.
You just
And
lost some.
we are conspicuous consumers, so you're missing out.
You're missing out. Okay, well, I'll go with my favorite. I went a little bit old school, I went with "What Christmas Means to Me" by Stevie Wonder. I think,
Excellent choice.
yeah, it's for me. It's very cinematic, and it's a good way to kick. Like, funny enough, I have a growing Christmas music playlist inspired by my own Christmas movie, "A Chance of Snow," which I would tell you to watch if I even knew if it was still available anywhere. Huh.
I
But
have a DVD copy.
yeah, oh boy, just DVD. I need to get you something higher res than that. Um, but so I either start that playlist with either Mariah Carey's, obviously, "All I Want for Christmas," or "What Christmas Means to You." And I also like the Ronettes with the why is the song escaping me of the big Ronettes song? But all right, which one do you dislike?
I mean, it's so easy because my obvious answer is
I'm
Christmas
setting you
shoes
up.
because it's trite and horrible. But I'd like to talk a little bit about Hallelujah by Pentatonics for just a second.
Or by anybody who's
Um,
covered it.
Look, Hallelujah is a fantastic top level song,
Totally.
but it is about a man who is so whipped by a woman who clearly hates him that he's about to destroy his life. You know, Christmas themes. And the fact that we can do it a cappella with mouth noises and it has the word hallelujah in it, we assign it to the biggest, happiest holiday of the year. And it's just asinine.
Yeah.
You want to listen to Jeff Beck's version? Fantastic. Go do it in a dark room. You want to listen to Loud and Wainwright? Have at it. You should. It's a fantastic song. His
Have a
entire catalog's great.
maybe burn yourself so you'll still feel something when you're done. I get it. Yeah.
But don't play Jingle Bells and sag your way into Hallelujah and think that you're accomplishing something
Did you just make
because they're
segue a
not
verb?
both Christmas songs.
No,
I
they're
did.
not. And
I didn't do that. That's an actual thing. I got like a really high score in my English SATs many years ago,
I
but
know we've already had Maudlin this morning. Look at us.
it's great. But no, Christmas Shoes is right up there too. And I know I'm cheating giving too, but that is just trite garbage.
It's okay because I'm going to be bringing Christmas shoes up in the different context just so I can plug something I do love. Look, you joke with me about me not being the biggest fan of the Beatles. And I will admit that since you've talked to me a bunch, my appreciation for the Beatles has grown. Like I have my whole thing was I summed up the Beatles with "She Loves You." Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's really deep writing. But obviously, um,
Yeah, it's cool that you stopped in their first year and ignored the last nine, but that's
yeah.
fine.
Well, between you and my colleague here, but I agree with Jess.
My least favorite song, listen, I'm going to have some confrontation about this. But it is Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas Time by Sir Paul McCartney. Listen. I love the Beatles. I love Paul McCartney. I love Wings. I love a few Wings songs. I know one Wings song. Listen, okay. I have a little bit of a theory, okay? This song is so annoying that I want to crawl into the clothing racks in a department store and die. But I think that it was all on purpose. I think Paul McCartney was trolling us. He knew that repetition is what makes an earworm, and he knew that we were going to be playing this song for decades to come. He's the modern troll. He is the everlasting troll. He's been trolling us ever since he tried to convince us that he didn't die in 1965. Okay, this is what happens.
I'm not even going to just talk about Paul McCartney's Christmas song as one of the worst. I'm going to make John Lennon's anything Beatles Christmas. I just turn it off. I don't care. I think they're all. I think she's right about Paul McCartney trying to troll us 30 years later, and it worked. But I just for me, Beatles
No,
Christmas stuff.
yeah,
Not into it.
don't get me wrong. There's nothing about simply having a wonderful Christmas time that is a good song. It's a jingle that went too far.
He's like he bought his first synthesizer and wanted to use all the buttons.
Yeah, if you wanted to sell cookies, it's a fabulous song for 30 seconds. The fact that it goes 3 minutes is a bridge too far, frankly. I can give or take War is Over, Merry Christmas, because Lennon was clearly in a Yoko Ono world at that point. So I don't know how much to credit one or the other, and I'm sure he would defend it if he was here, saying no, it was me. But it's an interesting Christmas choice, and I don't have to love everything every Beatle has done to still appreciate the Beatles.
I will just say this: if you're looking for a song like that kind of repeats and gets an earworm, but is better, I highly recommend the Saturday Night Live classic with Chris Kattan and Jimmy Fallon and Horatio Sands. I wish it was Christmas today because it's one of the few sketches he didn't laugh during. So there you go.
Um, I will give a plug. Neither of us are big fans of Jimmy Fallon for a few different reasons, but his Christmas channel on Sirius XM, Christmas Seasonings, Holiday Seasonings, is actually a really good channel.
Fantastic. It's great, except when he plays a song from his album because the album is not good. Um, Jessica and I did a comparison last night because I don't know if you realize this, but maybe like it might even be 10 years old now. But Seth MacFarlane did a Christmas crooner style album that is excellent. And Jimmy Fallon's is not. But it's the one of the few times where on his channel, like you said, because he knows all these guys and getting some of the backstories. It's actually it is an excellent channel on XM. It's definitely what we've been mostly listening to this
And I'm
year.
probably going to butcher his name, but if you like the Saturday Night Live Christmas song, Julian Casablancas actually does a full-length version of that with more lyrics. You can look
Oh,
that up
really?
on
I'll,
Spotify or Apple Music.
I will definitely.
It's on. I have a playlist called Tolerable Christmas Songs, and it's one of the ones on there.
You really are so dark and edgy, aren't you? You really are. You're complicated. Okay, let's talk sadness or sadness. So Texas lost to Georgia. Um, I don't want to get into the game so much because I want to get into two aspects around the game. Because the game I thought was weird. I thought that whole SEC thing, ref, that you had been warning me back about for like 3 years since this was announced, really finally bit us in the butt. I know it didn't help; it didn't hurt us against A&M, but anything that you can take away from positive as a Longhorn fan on that game, and I will tell you that I am officially now in the start Arch Manning play Arch Manning camp because Quinn
Sure.
just looked frightened in overtime. Like he just wanted to get rid of the ball as quick as possible. And I don't know what the goal was. But so is there anything that you're like, oh, you should take this positive from that experience?
I mean, you were in the SEC championship game, so I would take that as a positive. Not winning is a bummer, but I think for your first year in a conference, when a lot of people told you there was no way that anybody comes in your first year in the conference and does that, even though Missouri did it, but that's a whole different thing.
One of the people said it would take
From
us 20 years
2012,
to get good in the conference, and I'm like,
it's
no.
yeah, no, that's not a real thing. Especially in the days of NIL and unlimited transfers, you can pretty much, and you should, frankly, as a head coach, be able to rebuild a team on the fly
Hmm.
often. Uh, I think that you proved again that you have a really, really good defense, and that's probably going to need to carry you through as far as you go through the playoffs. The offense is going to be a question as long as you don't have a definitive answer at quarterback. And I don't know that Arch Manning's necessarily going to be any better. I think it's a different dynamic. I think he doesn't have the battle scars that Ewers might have at this point,
Sure.
because it does feel like Ewers is hearing footsteps and seeing things that aren't there, and is just not, lack of a better term, not taking care of the ball the way he needs to take care of the ball in situations,
And it's
in the
so
red zone.
predictable. It's so
Yeah.
predictable that it's going to fall apart.
Um, so there's plenty of positives. I think the biggest positive is that you're playing a very beatable Clemson team, and that'll be a bigger challenge than if you beat them and have to play Arizona State, because who gives a shit about Arizona State outside of Tempe? Um, like, I guess the players' moms care about Arizona State.
Yeah.
Most of them, not all of
I
them,
think
because
one of our
some of
good
them have
friends on
kids that go to
Twitter,
other schools.
San Antonio Tim, his son is either at Arizona or Arizona State. So good luck at whichever one that is, Tim.
Yeah, but I think you have a very clear path to the championship game if you getting past Clemson.
Yeah, and I know we're going to
Clemson,
do a full dive into the playoffs next
yeah.
week, but
But no, I think there's positive. I mean, of course, there's positives. You played in the SEC championship game, came in second in the league, and you're playing in the playoffs. Those are all positive things.
yeah.
Recruiting is going to continue to go well. You have either the one or number two class based on
Yeah, I
whichever
think it's
ranking thing.
two for ESPN and one for 24/7.
And that whole industry is a whole thing we could talk about too, because there's like five services, and three of them have been started by the same guy, and keep
Yeah,
getting off, and he just starts.
I definitely want to do like a deep dive into that. That's fascinating.
It's all very, very incestuous. But anyway, you've got a good class coming in. It remains to be seen what you will take out of the portal, what you even need out of the portal. I assume there'll be some things, but I think one of the downfalls of making the playoffs is you're a little bit hamstrung in the ability to pull guys in from the portal right now. And you don't know what you're losing quite as much. I know you had a defensive tackle who declared to be in the portal, which is
My favorite though
bizarre to
is that
me.
my favorite though is it's one of those Longhorn websites that kept reporting it, and they reported the headline like it was the greatest disaster ever, and then it turns out the guy played 4 games. Like,
Yeah.
calm down.
But it's bizarre to me that you would need I think it goes to prove that, especially in the early wave of players that come out in the portal, which again is a whole nother topic, it's not always their choice that they're in the portal. I think there's some very hard conversations that happen after that last football game of the regular season that are basically, this is where we see your future, and you're probably going to be better off playing at a different school.
Yeah,
Those conversations are had from coaching staffs, their players all over the country. So, from our perspective in College Station, I think we have 15 or 16 players in the portal now, and outside of two of them, it's all kind of, well, you're going to be third string if you come back, and you can come back if you
yeah,
want to, but if you want to play, and that's the real, and it's nothing against those kids, but it
sure.
may not be a new fit. A lot of kids are
That's the
recruited
thing
under a
is
different regime.
it might even be not a cultural fit. Like they might not like the way
Yeah,
Mike Elko runs the thing. They're just not connecting, and so you go. I mean, you
right.
wish them the best of luck. You think
But it
there's
is
any?
still a little bit odd to me when you see a player from Texas, or I think there's been two or three from Georgia declaring from the portal, and you've got at least one more game to play, maybe
Yeah, I would
three.
think you'd at least want to hang around and see if you win the Natty. But
Hang around, maybe get a ring.
I wonder when we're going to find out when Uri's decision is, because I'm reading more and more that he might stay and stay in college and transfer. I think that from what I've
I always
read,
wonder how the.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I
Oh,
said
I
one of the
always
things
wonder.
I read is that they said that he's sort of been told that he would not be the starter if he comes back next year. Now he should know
No,
that, but
I think that's right. I always wonder how the articles get started though, because it takes one guy to kind of suppose something, and I don't know what who wrote the first one, but I mean, you or I could sit there and make that up. Well, he's not going to be the starter at Texas. We've talked about that. We've been talking about it for 3 weeks. He wouldn't be the starter at Texas if he came back next year.
Yeah.
What if he doesn't get the NFL grade? Well, maybe he wants to stay in college. Well, he's going to have to transfer. And all of a sudden, there's a $4 million offer from some unnamed Big Ten school for Quinn to play his senior year, his fifth senior year there. I got to think that like 99% of that shit is just bullshit. It's just somebody making up something for clicks. I think the reality is that if Ewers gets anything that says third round or better,
Yeah.
he's going to go to the draft and be in the NFL. And if he doesn't, he has that safety net to fall on. I think that neither side, and not with any regret, even just it's time to move on kind of thing, are going to be mad if he's playing for Purdue next year. I'm just going to
Right.
make up a Big Ten school because, I know the story will be, well, it should be Ohio State.
Yeah.
He
That
started
that
there.
is
He's
the
got
story.
unfinished business.
Well,
Unfinished business. Well, Ryan Day has unfinished business too.
hey, Ryan Day might not be your coach. Yeah, and there's a lot I want to get into that, but we'll dive into that next week as we get ready for the first round of the playoffs. But
No,
uh,
but honestly, Texas fans, if you're sad about something in football right now, you're just looking for things to be sad about.
well,
Cut
that's
it
the
out.
fan base. That's the fan base. Our fan bases are equally knee jerk. We just jerk in the different direction. I feel like A&M always feels positive until they don't, and we're always like, "What's the point?" We're very much the
Too much,
Eeyore of football fans.
it's too much jerking.
It's
Whatever it is, just
there's a lot of jerking. All right, let's do some wholesome. Let's talk Christmas movies. Like I'm gonna start out with two, which is Christmas Vacation and It's a Wonderful Life.
I mean, mine are easy because I talk about it a lot, but Scrooge is my top. And whether, like we talked about last week, you think it's a retelling of or a sequel to A Christmas Carol, it's got all of the classic tropes of that story from Dickens brought to the modern age of 1987, which to me was, as adult as you could get, because in 1987, I think I was 16. So, Bill Murray is one of my all-time favorites. I think the story's really well done, and if you're a movie that can make me tear up every time I watch you, um, even what are we talking now, 35, 36 years later, it's an all-time classic for me. Right behind that, if we're doing a classic movie too, I'll go a little bit off the beaten path and say Miracle on 34th Street,
Okay.
because I just like the idea that the U.S. Postal Service is worth something. Because today it's not, but there it saved Santa Claus's life. So
It did. And now, if we're to talk movies, we might as well jump back to again Jess Paul, resident multi-award winning actress. You should follow her on YouTube for all of her. She does like fun arts and honestly, she has the most random and exciting YouTube channel out there. And also, I think neither of us, Andy, had coffee, but her energy certainly woke us up when we watched her video at 5:30 in the morning.
I really enjoy the fact that she appears to be dispelling the myth that emo kids are low energy with each 76 word sentence that she
I
throws out.
mean,
It's really fantastic. Plus, she's wearing a kolache on her head, which is, I
which is
mean,
for
I'm
Polish
all
guys
for
like
it.
us. Yeah. No, it's funny because I know, like, she and I have known each other forever. I'm putting up with this awesome photo we took at our last festival, but she's a big Christmas person to the point I think she's the only one who's been commenting on my Christmas countdowns on YouTube. And I could tell she would be excited on this one. And look, her choice is now.
My least favorite Christmas movie. Okay, now this is the only thing on the list that I don't have anything for it. I even cheated. I even looked up worst Christmas movies of all time, and I haven't seen any of them. So I'm very excited to hear what everybody else comes up with, and then I'll probably be like, oh my god, yeah, that's right. But I'm gonna have to skip to my favorite Christmas movie. You're gonna think that your emo girl is going to say Nightmare Before Christmas, but I'm gonna go with something more classic. It's a classic Christmas carol. You were gonna think I was gonna say Scrooge, right? I really do like Scrooge. It's a really good movie, but I'm actually gonna go with A Muppet's Christmas Carol, and it's because it gives me a very similar vibe to another one of my favorite movies, Labyrinth. And we all love Labyrinth for the very same reason. Say it with me: three, two, one. David Bowie's Bulge.
Look, I agree with her. Muppet Christmas Carol, I think, is the best adaptation of that story. I love that she doesn't have a least favorite Christmas movie because I do. And I'm actually going to borrow one of yours. There was a time when Rob Lowe wasn't America's sweetheart or the guy we just liked, and he was forced to do movies like The Christmas Shoes, which was a Hallmark movie, not even good enough for Hallmark. It's pretty bad. And the only thing good about that song and movie is that Patton Oswalt has an epic stand-up bit mocking it that you should check out on YouTube if you haven't. Do you have a
There's
least
nothing.
favorite?
There's nothing that Patton Oswalt does poorly, so I'm on the board with that. Mine is weird, and first of all, I want to give a shout out because nobody ever mentions, and it should get mentioned more as a good movie, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. Because if you like the Muppets,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna love Emmett Otter's Jug Band
That was a
Christmas.
staple growing up for me. Yeah.
Same guys. Um, I think this is one of the movies that is set during Christmas, and you could argue whether or not it's a Christmas movie, but Steve Martin's wearing a hat in the on the poster, so we'll go with it.
Hmm.
Mixed Nuts is not a good movie. It's not a good movie, even though it's got Steve Martin in it and a great cast. And I love almost everything Steve Martin does, but there was a two movie period, Mixed Nuts and LA Story, that are just two of the most depressing, worst, make you feel bad, make your scrotum crawl back up into your body because life is not worth living movies. And Mixed Nuts is right there. The fact that it's just that it exists just proves that there's a devil.
That's a very extreme take. Wow.
Now, this is the non-Hallmark movie division, of course,
Sure.
because
Because
if we were doing Hallmark movies, there's a whole world that we are not exploring.
right. And part of that, yeah. I mean, look, I like them, but before we get to our next major topic, I do want to open this Christmas present on camera. Now, look, this Christmas present has a
We're
backstory.
doing an unboxing.
I'm doing an unboxing. This came from one of my favorite students of all time. Her name is Fia. I taught both her brother and her. I actually got her brother into St. Pius when they moved from Austin to here. And then she didn't go to St. Pius because they moved back. So here she is. But she's given me an amazing Christmas gift all 3 years so far of her being a student of mine. And in fact, my Astros onesie pajamas from last week were a gift from her. And so she just walked in while we were recording this. So let's see. It's a Star Wars cutting board thing with my name on it.
Now's the part where Jimmy tears up.
I mean, a little bit. This is so great. I'm gonna put this in my room. I'm obviously never gonna use it because I'm not really a cooker. Um, but this is awesome. And
The fact that you,
I've got the one
the
you gave
fact
me
that
on
you
my
call
wall.
it,
I should put them next to each other.
the fact that you call it a cooker pretty much proves that you're not a cooker.
Fair. So, Fia, thank you so much for being an amazing student, and thank you again for this very awesome gift. I really appreciate it. And now we'll
I
cut
like to say
away.
this about being in HR. Teachers have a rough life. They do get gifts at Christmas time. Being in HR, nobody gives you gifts ever. Just that's if you're making career choices based on that for kids, keep that in mind.
And at least being the fun teacher with everything that I love on my, I never get the generic like Hallmark candle either. Like, I'm getting something Star
How many
Wars or
coffee
Astros
mugs do you
related.
have?
What?
Say how
No,
many coffee mugs do you have,
I get
Jim?
no. I know your wife's whole thing about coffee. I get no teacher coffee mugs. I get Star Wars stuff or I get Astro stuff. It's pretty
Good
sweet.
job, kids.
Now, speaking of the Houston Astros, the Bregman thing, it's interesting because the more that comes out, the more it sounds like, again, and you're right. We don't know anything about this negotiation, but it does seem like the more information that comes out about it, it feels like both sides do want to make something happen. Is that your take?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's just a matter of time, and I can be perfectly wrong on this. I'm wrong a lot. My wife will tell you I'm wrong a lot. Although I did win on her birthday present, so I got tears. That was good.
Oh, good.
Happy birthday today, Elizabeth, by the way. Yeah,
L'chaim, Mazel.
yeah, I think that Bregman wants to be here. The Astros have to make the numbers make sense. But I think now there's an added complication of what are you going to get for trading potentially Kyle Tucker? And that affects what prospects you might want. So let's say you don't need a third base prospect if you know Bregman's going to sign, but maybe you want that for a trade chip for later on. So now there's a whole lot of 3D chess being played rather than just checkers with this. So I think those moves are complementary. And despite the one Rangers fan I found on Blue Sky yesterday, the Astros aren't broke. So it's not a matter of not being able to afford Alex Bregman.
Right. Right.
It's always interesting to me because the Astros are broke. Well, they have the third highest payroll in baseball.
Yeah, I don't think people should understand that. I can see as a
It's
businessman, it's annoying to pay a $40 million tax when you don't have to.
Yeah, we may have allocated salary poorly. That's certainly a thing, Jose Abreu. Um, but it's not a matter of being broke.
Yeah,
And if you're going to trade Kyle Tucker, it's not a matter of. I think it comes down to do you want Bregman or Tucker? And I think the Astros want Bregman, and that makes Tucker's contract in the future, not this year, but in the future, untenable. Um, and if you have the opportunity to plug other holes in your lineup, you've got to do
hmm
it, like we talked about earlier. But I think the Bregman thing is likely to get resolved within the next 7 days. That's the general feeling I get. But and I will tell you the luck of how our show goes and how it's gone for 2 years.
it's gonna break in
As soon
about
as we are
5 seconds.
as soon as we are done recording, Bregman will resign and Tucker will be Oakland A.
Okay, last question that's Astros related. You think Fromber gets moved?
I think it's one or the other, and I think it
Okay,
depends
okay,
if you. I think if you trade Tucker to the Yankees, for instance, and you get Gill, then that makes Fromber superfluous. So then maybe you can move him because you've got a glut of starters who kind of profile similarly. I think if you look at the package that's been mentioned around the Cubs, I think you have to hold on to Fromber at least through the middle of the season. And holding on to Fromber is not a bad deal because I think Fromber, even with his performance, has had enough of an up and down career that he's not going to break the bank. So if you want to keep him, that's an opportunity.
sure.
Kyle Tucker is going to get an astronomical level. He's not going to get a Juan Soto deal because he's a few
No,
years older, but he's going to get a astronomical level deal, no pun intended.
he will probably get the biggest contract of all the guys we've seen walk.
Yep, absolutely.
And
But
I
that
think
also means that he's a valuable asset, and depending on what you want to read and who you want to believe, there are up to 5 teams bidding on his services right
yeah,
now.
and I can see two of those teams. I can see the Cubs and the Yankees realizing, hey, we're going to trade for him because we're going to re-sign him, and therefore they're going to be more okay with letting things go. I
Yep.
think you're exactly right. I think the Soto thing burned the Yankees, and I actually think they could be a better team with an outfield of Judge and Tucker than even an outfield of Judge and Soto. Just for like things you brought up with the way that ballpark plays. I do want to get into next week some of this drama around Juan Soto, but we still have a long checklist to go through. But some of this stuff is crazy what we're reading, and so we'll get to that. But your guy Connor Wigman transferred from Texas A&M to the University of Houston. That move surprised
What
me
did
a
they
little
do?
bit. I
Did,
thought they
did they do? They
that
do
we did.
this?
All I know is
The
they go,
shocker.
university. But like we don't have any UH fans out there. But my question for you is, I would have thought he would have gone to a bit more established program that was pass happy to bump those numbers up. Did this move shock you at all, or not one way or the
I
other?
don't know if shock is the right term. I would have held out a little bit more. Just because the way that and I didn't watch U of H really closely this year because they weren't all that good. Sometimes when they're at least entertaining, they're on TV around here, so you watch them. This year they weren't great, so it wasn't a thing. My concern for him there is that he's not going to have anybody to pass to, and he's not going to have a real good offensive line to work behind unless something dramatic changes throughout the portal. Now, you don't have to have necessarily SEC or Big Ten caliber players in either of those slots to compete in the Big 12. We've seen that this year.
Yeah, Yeah.
Uh, but I think there's not a lot of help on that team for a guy that probably needs to be in a situation where he has help. Um, I would have thought a lower level Big Ten school would have made a lot of sense for him. It could very well, he's from Bridgeland, so it may be a thing where I wanted to be closer to home and they offered me and this made sense. And
Yeah.
great.
Well, he's still young enough
Um,
that he can still transfer again if he needs to.
yeah, he could do that. He could also just give up football and concentrate on baseball because he was as good a baseball player or as good a baseball prospect as he was a football prospect.
Well, I mean, think about it with baseball. You
And
can have a Juan
there's
Soto
more
type
money in
deal.
baseball.
Yeah. And you're not going to get concussed. You're not going to get CTE. So,
It's much harder to. Yeah.
yeah. But I would have thought he would have gone someplace. Honestly, I keep saying SMU because that's where every Longhorn quarterback went whenever he
Yeah.
got. But it was a pass. I mean, all and by the way, those guys got drafted. So I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
Garrett
Garrett
Gilbert
Gilbert.
had a decent NFL career as far as length.
Yeah. ACC school would have made a lot of sense. Again, I got to think that it's the draw to be close to home for whatever reason. And I don't know what his personal life is. Maybe he has a girlfriend, maybe his mom's, whatever. Um, but it was a little bit of a head scratcher for me because I think there are better teams that he could have. But we're on the other side of this, right? The better teams would have had to offer. And it may very well could have been he was in the portal for 2 weeks, and that's the one team that offered.
No, that's true. I mean, you're right. Exactly. I fell in the
I
own
don't have
trap I
any
was
idea. I mean,
criticizing.
I don't
Yeah.
have any idea who was pursuing him. I think if it were me, I would have held out to see just a little bit longer, especially post playoffs, who really needs a quarterback, because I think there's still a lot of movement to happen.
Yeah. I would have thought it seems to me like the U of H offer wasn't going anywhere, but I think you're
Yep.
completely right on that.
Well, I think the other side of that is last year set some expectations for the portal that haven't been fulfilled this year. Last year was a feeding frenzy within the first 5 days of the portal. Everybody that was worthwhile who came out 5 days into it, they had offers and they had made their decisions. And some would argue they knew where they were going before they entered the portal. You want to get into tampering, whatever. This year, there hasn't been the frenzy so far with the guys who have entered the portal about immediately jumping on offers. I think from the school that I follow most, A&M, we've hit a couple of others have just we're gonna look at all our options way like they would do in high school recruiting, and I think that's probably going to be more the norm.
Yeah.
But
Plus,
I
it was a
think some of
12
the
team
schools are
playoff.
slow playing too
That
because
helps too.
that's the other part of it. Some of the schools are slow playing offers as well because I don't know who's going to come out from Georgia or Texas once the playoffs are over. So
Yeah.
maybe I want to see if some of those guys are available.
All right. Last question regarding Christmas, because again, our next episode was really be college football playoff heavy. Um, what is your best Christmas gift you ever got?
See, I read the question a little bit different. I mean, the easy answer is Millennium Falcon. And I know that I am a child of a certain age. And so I saw the original movie in the theaters when I was 6 years old. I remember very vividly my grandfather taking me to see Empire Strikes Back and not having any idea what it was at Northline Mall, the Northline Mall cinema, which none of which
Wow.
exists anymore, by the way.
Doesn't exist anymore. Yeah.
It's concrete. Yeah. Um, so getting the Millennium Falcon, especially after my parents suckered me into telling me there was no way I was getting that, and then it appeared, made it even better because I tend to at that point in my life I believed things my parents said. That ended at like 10 or 11, but
Fair.
that was the most. I have still a picture, and it's probably in my folder somewhere here at work. The box when I was that age felt like this big. I was wearing Captain America pajamas Christmas morning, and I'm the proudest I probably have ever been over something I didn't actually accomplish on my own, holding this giant box. And I think that I got other things that Christmas, but I know that I spent the entire morning and all of the day and the next day playing with that and meticulously trying to apply the stickers and not have the I forget what the game is, but the chess game board game sticker not
Mhm.
be crooked and getting really frustrated that I could not put it on there straight. Um, but as I get older, I will say from a more sentimental standpoint and from a simpler time thing, One of my favorite things that I used to get, and I would get it every year. I don't know if you call it best, but certainly favorite and warm memories was the stupid book from Lifesavers. And it was the Lifesavers book, and you opened it up, and it had 10 rolls of Lifesavers in different flavors. And even if I didn't know then butter rum is a superior flavor of Lifesaver, but you had every single
Facts.
one. And that was a fantastic little book. And it's something that you got, I mean, it was a staple in my house every year. So that's the kind of
Was
thing
that a
when I
stocking
see them
stuffer thing for
now.
you? Like it was in your stocking kind of deal?
Yeah, but you see it kind of in retail now, different versions of it, and it brings back memories of a much simpler, easier time of, well, that's a fun memory. And plus butter rum is still the superior lifesaver flavor.
Again, facts. We were actually having this. They had just and I had this conversation last night. We were at this Harry Potter thing, drinking butterbeer, and we were like, butterscotch in general is underrated as a flavor.
It is.
Uh,
Caramel's way overrated, butterscotch way underrated.
yeah, I agree, and I like caramel just fine. But
Yeah, it's
you're
fine.
right. I think I kind of went a different. First of all, I went some sarcastic directions too because I've got two pretty naughty favorite Christmas presents. One when I was
You had much
16.
better. You evidently had much better Christmases than I did.
I was gonna say once when I was 16 and once with the woman I'm married to, but I probably shouldn't out that because I don't know if my Jess watches the show, but I assume Jess, who's on the show, will watch the show, and then that Jess will
I
certainly
don't
out
want to
me.
slow you for just a second. You have too many
I'm
Jesses in your
telling you, it's
life.
getting
You
confused.
married one. Everybody. I know of at least four. Everybody else should change their name besides your wife, just for
I
your sake
agree.
of ease.
I totally agree, but I have a feeling if I accidentally out what happened with my wife Jess, my great friend Jess, who might be a better friend of my wife Jess, will definitely out me in February. So either way, I'm not going to do that. But look, as a kid, I had a similar toy experience, and it was the USS Flag, and which was the GI Joe aircraft carrier. It was a monster. I was a big GI Joe kid. I got the hydrofoil that year as well, which was super cool. Although looking back, it was definitely the my father trying to buy our love because he wasn't around kind of deal, which was its own little
Sure.
baggage thing. But
Everybody talks about how hard it is when your parents are divorced, but you do get two sets of gifts. And at a certain age, that's pretty cool.
that's pretty yeah, and yeah, I mean yeah, well exactly. And like my dad was never really around, but he would show up on Christmas and it would be like the tree threw up. As a kid, it was cool. As an older man now, going, I kind of wish we just hung out more. But
Oh no, it's
it's
horrible.
very cats in the cradle. Very
Cats in the
cats.
Cradle, man. Cats in the Cradle, man. Which is also
Exactly.
not a Christmas song. I'm amazed Pentatonics doesn't do a version of it.
Right. But I would also say I've always had this dream that I would come downstairs and in a stocking would be a puppy, like hanging from the mantle, his little paws out here. And Jessica said that's never going to happen. But I will say that we did get Orbit right at the beginning of Christmas time. So that will be my favorite Christmas present was little Orbit and little Quint, who we got on December 23rd. So we do have two puppies that I very much associated with Christmas, and you and I share the dog thing. One of the many things we share as far as passions go. So I know you guys have a new arrival, in fact, to your family.
Ted, yes.
His name is
I'm the
Ted.
only one who calls him Ted. Well, no. He is a rescue. He was 5 years old, so he came with a name. His name is Teddy. I refuse to say Teddy because it just sounds ridiculous, so I call him Ted. I'm the only one who calls him Ted.
I call him Ted
My
now
daughter
too,
and
buddy.
yeah, his full official name, as far as the vet is concerned, is Theodore Eugene.
Well, alrighty then.
My
That's
daughter's
great.
dog, daughter's choice,
Yeah.
all that. So yeah,
Well,
but Ted's cool. Ted's very low key. He's still in the I'm wondering what happened in his life stage because if you look at him wrong, he will submit to you,
oh yeah,
like
that's
just
always the
full
hard
on
part.
on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're working on it, and he
Yeah.
seems to he knows how to get on a bed and sleep with you, so that
And that's really what matters the most.
he provides value right there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can't. Well, I tell you what, though, Jessica and I were saying this when we saw the first pictures. Of all the places he could land, he landed in the best place because I think you guys do a really good job with your dogs, making them part of your family. So, and Andy wasn't wrong because we did have news break. No, don't rush to Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it today for its, you know, don't do that because it's not very big news. But I did just find out that our show, the first season of Ballpark Nation, has passed its quality control, which means all the deliverables came through correctly. We've had to work with the sales team on all manner of stuff. It's been a months long process. We started this process of getting the final QC finished sometime in September, and we just got the email done. It does mean that it's now up for licensing. There's apparently already some conversations with groups about who may or may not want to carry the show. So we're very excited to, by the time we officially release the show, we will be putting it out in March. But um, I want to thank a bunch of people for getting the show to where it is. And we've had a bunch of people that are on the team. We've had some people that left the team. But I have to go back and I'll always thank Andy Tom Chesson, first of all, for being just kind of my rock in the whole thing. I want to thank Scott McIntyre. He's not with the show anymore, but the show really is what it is because a lot of his input. And he was the one who really put the foot in my butt to get it out to a wider audience. So I really am very thankful for Scott. Sometimes you have friends so close they become family, and I want to thank Cedric and Lish for, Lish and Cedric like baseball for about the same reason. It's in the rear. But those two, from a creative standpoint, have been just completely invaluable at looking at everything that I've created to make sure that it works and it fits before it went off to the sales agent. So thank you. I'm very thankful of Jordan and Max and the kids for being willing to traipse all over the country watching baseball with me. I think Max likes the beer. I think the kids like the snow cones and the ice cream, although they pick snow cones over ice cream, which is weird. And I think Jordan likes the baseball. So there we go. We're all one big happy baseball family. And of course, the anchor to that family and the anchor to all of this is my wife, Jessica. So one, as I thank you for everything you've done for me for the show Ballpark Nation as we get ready to take that next step. I'm really glad I didn't accidentally say something embarrassing during this episode about Christmas. Now you don't want to know what it was. But again, Jessica, you are the love of my life. You are where everything begins and ends to me. And if anybody watching this, be it an ARFer, be it people that like sports, the coverage that we do, if they knew the number of times I wanted to quit in a given week, then they would really know exactly the impact that Jessica's had on getting this show finished. I guess that does wrap us up unless you have any final thoughts. Do you even remember anything we talked about at the beginning of the show? Because I certainly don't.
I do. I remember all the things because they're all very important. I want to thank Jess for contributing today. Certainly invite anybody else who watches the show or any friends of either of us. If you want to record a little segment, we're happy to include you in the show and comment on it. And notice that you're wearing a kolache on your head. If you want to do that, you've got a pole and a half pole here, so it's likely that we're going to notice kolaches.
I'm telling you, and it even looks, and I would imagine of all the people I know, and I don't know if she's Polish because her last name is a stage name, but I bet you of all the people I know, she actually knows the difference between a kolache and a pig in a blanket. And if she doesn't, she should learn it by February because I haven't finished award decisions for Austin Revolution. For Andy Tom Chesson, I'm Jim Christopher. We'll see you back next week for the show to be named later.